Alright guys, we're back out here in the chicken coop, and today we're going to work through some of these chicken myths. We're going to start off with one of the most basic but yet commonly asked questions. Do I need a rooster for my hens to lay eggs? Absolutely not. Hens will lay eggs regardless if they're in the presence of a rooster or not. The only reason you would need a rooster is if you wanted the eggs fertilized to later produce chicks. That is the only reason. And a lot of people seem to think that you can't eat eggs, or they prefer not to eat eggs if the hens are with a rooster. I've never really understood where that concept comes from. It is true that most of your commercial eggs that you buy in the grocery stores are not exposed to a rooster. There's nothing drastically different with an egg that is not exposed to a rooster versus an egg laid that has been exposed to a rooster. Like I said, I'm not real sure where that concept or why that preference is there for some people not to eat eggs that have been exposed to a rooster. We eat them on a daily basis because I have a flock that I want it to be able to reproduce. So all of my hens are always exposed to roosters, multiple roosters at that. And we eat the eggs on a daily basis. I guess that's just a personal preference thing. Maybe it's a mind thing. I'm not sure. If you're just wanting eating eggs and that's the sole purpose of your flock, a rooster is not necessary at all. Another myth is that some people believe that chickens cannot survive the cold. This is just not true. Majority of your chicken breeds, especially your heritage breeds, are built for the cold. They can withstand extreme cold temperatures. So just if you're in a severely cold climate, just do your homework, do your research on cold hardy breeds. There's several out there, like I said, especially your heritage breeds. While we're on the subject of cold climates, some people seem to think that it's not necessary or even helpful not to ventilate coops in the wintertime, but this couldn't be further from the truth. You have to keep chickens in a well-ventilated area at all times, no matter what the temp. In the wintertime, you want to keep that ventilation up high above the chickens to prevent direct draft on the chickens, even the height in which they're roosting. You want to put the ventilation high above and ventilate from the top. But even in the cold, most severe cold temps, you still have to offer them ventilation. If they're completely enclosed with no source of ventilation, those chickens are going to produce humidity through their waste, just their body heat in general, and in severe temperatures that can produce frostbite because of the humidity and the moisture that they create on their own. So ventilation is an absolute must, no matter what, no matter the temperature. Just like I say, be sure that in the extreme cold temps that you have that ventilation above so it's not a direct draft on the chicken. Let's talk about apple cider vinegar for a minute. Apple cider vinegar has its place in the coop. It is a great thing to reach for natural prevention. It has many benefits for your flock. It helps support their immune system. It also helps decrease the amount of algae in your waterers. But it's important, very important, that you use it in moderation. Daily ACV use can lower their ability to absorb calcium, which can lower their egg production. So you want to use it in moderation. You also want to keep in mind to never use it with metal waterers. It can corrode the metal. So good rule of thumb, moderation. On the higher ends, I wouldn't suggest more than once or twice a week. And I only like to use it if my flock is experiencing some kind of external stress. If I have individual birds that are stressed out, whether it's some type of respiratory infection or they're sick with some type of illness, I usually isolate those birds and provide them with a little more prevention. But during that time, I also go ahead and offer the whole entire flock a little bit of apple cider vinegar in their water, just to boost their immune system in case whatever that one single chicken has is contagious, a contagious type of illness. But other than that, change of seasons or in extreme temperatures, whether it's extremely hot or extremely cold weather, I will offer the ACV. But I don't do it on a regular basis. In fact, I may run ACV maybe 4 or 5 times a year. But again, that depends on your setup and your individual flock. I have a video out on that's more in depth on different types of illnesses and diseases in chickens, where I go deeper into prevention and treatment. So if you guys are experiencing any kind of illnesses in your flock, be sure and check that video out. Some people seem to think that they can change the eggshell color by the diet in which they feed their chickens, and this is just not true. Eggshell color is only determined by genetics. However, the egg yolk inside the egg, you can change the color of that yolk, or the diet can affect the color of the yolk. It can be a real pale yellow, depending on the diet, all the way up to a rich, dark orange, almost red yolk. And all that depends on the diet of your chicken. They just seen a bigger bird. I'm not sure if it was a crow. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. But that sound you hear, that is their warning sound. Like if they see or sense a predator, especially an air predator or some type of bird, they'll make those drastic sounds that you just heard. Let's talk about deworming schedule. In the years past, there was a lot of information out there recommending that you should keep your flock on a deworming schedule. Over the last few years, that they have really altered that and are now more on the side of not doing a routine deworming schedule due to the chicken's immune system building up resistance against those dewormers. I personally have never dewormed my flock. I know that may be hard for some of you to believe. As you guys know, if you've watched any of our garden videos, you know that we are year-round gardeners, and we feed all our garden scraps. We feed a lot of insect-damaged vegetables. We just throw them over the fence. They're getting a lot of those seeds. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard that pumpkin seeds is a natural dewormer. I feel that the seeds that they get out of the vegetables also help, not necessarily just pumpkins. I believe that helps eradicate the internal parasites. We feed them everything: cucumbers, jalapenos, tomatoes. A lot of people have heard that tomatoes, you can't feed tomatoes to your chickens, anything from the nightshade family. However, we have been feeding tomatoes to our chickens for years with no problem whatsoever. Zero. I'm also a firm believer that chickens are pretty smart animals and they know what they can and cannot eat. Just use your common sense about it. But we feed all our garden vegetables to any of the scraps, like after we get through in the house with coring or peeling certain vegetables or fruits, they go to the chickens. Or like I said, if we've got an overripe tomato or overripe cucumber that we've missed in the garden, all that goes to the chickens. We've never, ever had any problem with that. And I think all that natural vegetation and those seeds, I think that helps, again, with eradicating the internal parasites. I do use the apple cider vinegar, like I spoke of, during the change of the seasons 4 or 5 times a year, or anytime I have a stressed flock, whether there's an illness or respiratory infection passing through. But other than that, and the ACV has some benefits that have some to believe that it helps with the deworming and the internal parasites as well. This is just what I do. These are my opinions, but just do your homework on the deworming of chickens. Again, I have never used store-bought dewormer for my chickens, ever. We grow pumpkins. We do feed them pumpkins in the fall of the year. Again, pumpkin seed is a natural dewormer. But other than that, that's all they get. That's all they get. Okay, here's another one. A lot of people seem to think that you can't keep multiple roosters. In my experience, that's just not true. I have always had multiple roosters in my flock, and they all run together. Now, back when I was doing purebred, even then, in my purebred pens, I had more than one rooster, more than one pure rooster per pure pen. I would at least have a minimum of 2, depending on how many hens I had. And while we're on this subject, a good ratio is 1 rooster per 8 to 10 hens. However, right now, currently, I have a little more roosters than I need, and so my ratio is a little different than that. I've got to go through and cull some, and when I say cull, I usually give them away. I have found the breeds. I have a mixed flock. I do have some pure black copper Morans, and I do have some pure cream leg bar. However, neither of those nor my Easter eggers and my rainbow egg layers that are produced by crossing these 2 pures, they're not good meat birds. We have butchered some in the past, but about all you can do with them is boil them down and shred the meat for like tacos or chicken and dumplings, soups. They're not a good eating bird, so we don't butcher any of our flock. We are thinking about kind of tossing around the idea of raising some Cornish cross for meat birds, but we haven't dipped into that endeavor quite yet. Back to what I was saying. Multiple roosters. I got sidetracked there for a minute. Sorry, guys. Multiple roosters. In my experience, as long as they have ample room, ample hens, and I raise mine together, and that is a big factor. I do bring them up and raise them all together. Yes, they have their spats from time to time, but nothing life-threatening. They may draw blood every once in a while, but they usually break themselves up after they get their little spat worked out, and everything's fine. Currently, I don't know exact counts, but I'm going to say between 40 and 50 chickens. I have not added in the ones that I've hatched this year, so I'm sorry, I can't give you an exact count. But I probably have, it's sad, I don't even know how many roosters I have. I'm going to say, counting the young ones that I hatched this spring, I've probably, and they're teenagers, adolescent, getting real close to breeding age. They've already started crowing. So I'm going to say actively, I've probably got close to 10 roosters, maybe 1 or 2 more in here currently, with the rest being hens. So you can do the math. Again, I've got to cull out some roosters, but They all live perfectly fine together. Like I say, other than the occasional spat that they have, but that's just going to happen irregardless. Even if you have all hens, your hens will get into a little spat every now and then. They can be just as rough as the roosters, but in my experience, and I have been doing this for quite a few years, I have no trouble running my roosters together. Now, in the event that you have an existing flock, let me clarify this though, because I know I'm going to get some kickback on this. If you have an existing flock and you bring a brand new rooster in that is an adult rooster or even a young rooster, yes, you're going to have problems, and yes, it could possibly be fatal. I'm not denying that one bit. However, I've just never had that scenario because I raise my own birds. I don't bring in, the existing flock I consider a closed flock, and I raise my own birds. It has been several years since I have brought in any new existing birds. But because of my extreme crossing and my vast lines of birds that I have because I'm crossing for egg color, I don't run into any problems. So again, mine are raised together. And raised together roosters, I have not experienced any fatal problems with. Let me put it like that. So yes, they can coexist, and even bringing in a brand new rooster, if you do it right and you take your time with it, if you create a structure where those roosters can start seeing one another and start interacting with one another but cannot make contact with one another, and you slowly bring that new bird in, yes, it is possible for them to coexist 100%. You're just going to have to, take your time, be patient, and do the necessary means of giving them an opportunity to, again, meet each other through a fence. And I would say give that at least a very minimum of 2 weeks. Another one, moving on, that hens only lay for 2 to 3 years. And I have heard so many, while we're on this too, I have heard so many people after 2 or 3 years say, or get rid of their hens and say, my hens aren't laying anymore. They're too old to lay. A lot of people don't understand the molting process of chickens, number one. And number two, yes, it does depend on the breed of chickens. Your high production chickens do stop laying at an earlier age than your heritage breeds. I will agree with that statement. However, most chickens, even your high production, can lay over your 2 to 3 year period. Yes, they're going to slow down with their egg production. Yes, they're going to lay less eggs, but they will still keep laying. And some of these hens that I have currently in this flock right now are probably, some of my older birds are knocking on 5, 6 years old and still laying. Again, mine are crosses. Majority of them in here are crosses, with the exception of my pure leg bars and my pure Morans, but they will lay. And I'm going to give you some factors that play into that. The space that they have, how much natural habitat they have, and their diet, and their stress. If you keep all these things available and low stress and a good diet and plenty of space, plenty of fresh air, your hens will lay a lot longer than you think. But you have to understand the molting process. Any bird that's over a year old in the fall, when the days start getting shorter and into the winter, they're going to start their molting process in late fall to shed all their old feathers and to regrow new feathers for the winter. for that protection. This is a natural process that Mother Nature has done her magic with, and it's there for a purpose. Some people use lights, artificial lighting, to prolong the egg laying. Yes, this is an option. Me personally, I don't mess around with Mother Nature. She knows what she's doing. I don't do artificial lighting. What I do, I hatch every spring. Every spring, I bring in new birds. I hatch them myself from this flock, whether it's through a broody hen or incubator. I do both. Those first-year birds will lay for you through fall and winter. They go through several molts earlier in their adolescence, but when it gets time to lay, they will lay through that first year for you. So I always have eggs. This is a simple fix. I always have eggs. And if you're limited on space and you want to keep your flock down to a certain number, a good rule of thumb here is still to hatch or get whatever your means is. Even if you buy chicks, that's fine too. But if you bring those in early spring, by the fall, late fall and winter, those pullets are going to be, those hens are going to start laying, okay? And you're going to have eggs through your winter months. Where your older birds, anything over a year old, going into their second year of laying, those birds are going to molt. Guaranteed they're going to molt. And this is a yearly occurrence. And they're going to slow down, if not completely stop laying during this molt, because they are giving all their energy and all their calories to the regrowth of new feathers. And this is a high stress time for them. You also don't want to pick up birds more than you have to during this time, because those where they're regrowing those feathers is very touchy, very delicate. You want to let them be as much as possible. It's a good time to increase protein and calcium to help give them the nutrients that they need to regrow those feathers faster and with less stress to their body. So understand the life cycle of your chicken first before you rule out that they're completely done laying. And this molt can last a while. And it is completely a natural process for the bird. So just know that and understand that. And don't toss her out and chalk her up as being done, because 9 times out of 10, those that you think are done, come the spring, and once they get those new feathers and they're looking brand new, they'll start back laying. Just like always for you. Okay, eggs should always be washed. Again, personal preference, but also a myth. Me personally, I do not wash my eggs until I am ready to eat them. I've done a complete video on to wash or not wash your eggs. I go into full detail, the science behind it, explaining the bloom, explaining everything you need to know to make an educated decision on whether or not you want to wash your backyard eggs. So be sure and check that out. But when you wash eggs, depending on how roughly you wash your eggs, you are risking washing that bloom, that protective bloom, that again, Mother Nature has put there for a purpose, for a reason. You're washing that off. Then you are subjecting that egg to have bacteria enter through its very porous shell. So again, that's completely up to you. If you do wash an egg, it has to be refrigerated immediately. It needs to go in the fridge if you wash it. If you do not wash them, they can have a counter life safely up to 2 weeks. I have left them on the counter much more than that. As long as they're in a cool house, controlled climate, I've left them for a lot longer than that. Again, check out that video if you have more interest in washing and not washing and the science behind all that. I go in depth on that video. The name of that video is How to Handle Backyard Chicken Eggs. Let me know in the comments, do you wash your eggs or you don't wash? Drop it in the comments. I'd like to hear, what are you team wash or team not wash? Also, while we're on this subject, if you guys are frustrated with your hens giving you dirty eggs, poopy eggs, I found a game changer on clean nesting. And they are from My Favorite Chicken. They're the nesting pads. They have them with herbs and without. I'm in love with these things. They're very durable. One, as long as it doesn't get soiled, one nesting pad can last you easily a month. I found them, gave them a try, and started using them in the coop. My girls, you guys know by now if you watched any of my previous videos, they're notorious for eluding where I want them to lay. And they all want to get one. I have them several places to nest, and they all want to cram up in one and nest in one box. They sit there and just fight each other and do acrobats to all get in that one little nesting spot. It drives me crazy, but you just got to let them do what they're going to do. But I have started incorporating those nesting pads in where they normally lay, and again, it's been a game changer for me. I have much cleaner eggs. Highly recommend them. I'll drop the link for them down in the description, and it is an affiliate link. Your purchase does help support this channel, but it is a product that I use, I stand behind, and I highly recommend. So you guys can check that out if you're frustrated with dirty eggs. Roosters only crow in the morning. Absolutely false. Your roosters, yes, they do crow in the morning before the sun comes up. This is important. And if they're in an area where they can see the house, as mine are, and I'm always up before daylight, and as soon as I go in there, if they haven't started crowing already, as soon as I go in there in the bathroom and I turn the bathroom light on, it's like a light switch. They immediately start crowing. They do crow throughout the day. Absolutely, without a doubt, they crow all the time. If a plane flies over, if it thunders, if they hear some sound or dog barking in the distance, they're going to crow. Especially if you have neighbors with roosters that are crowing. They're going to crow back and forth to one another. So that is an absolute myth that they only crow in the morning. Do not fall for that. They crow all the time. And they will crow even in the dead of night. It's rare, but if you hear them crowing in the middle of the night, get out of bed and go check on them. Something's going on. Also, people believe that hens are completely silent. This couldn't be further from the truth either. As if you've watched all my videos, I film majority of them out here in the coop. And I'm sure you guys have heard my hens, and especially when they're singing their egg song. But hens can be very noisy. No, they don't crow, and they're not as high-pitched or as loud, decibel-wise, as roosters, but they are noisy creatures as well. And I say they don't crow. Some hens, especially if you don't have a rooster, will become your dominant hen in place of not having a rooster. And there has been hens that do crow. So let me back up on that. I've never experienced it, but I've always had roosters. So I've never had a reason for a dominant hen. But they are noisy as well. And so if you're living in the city and you have close neighbors and you are allowed to keep chickens, just know that ahead of time. They are noisy as well. And chickens can't fly. While yes, scientifically by the term, if you look it up in the dictionary, no, they're not a flight bird. They can't fly long distances. However, they can fly over a fence, especially if you have a garden with beautiful vegetables coming off, and they'll fly that fence every time. I've already been screamed at and bashed in the comments. I did a video on clipping chicken wings. I do keep my all my chickens, their wings clipped, because if not, they fly over the fence, because mine's an open air coop, contained, fenced in area. It has no top to it whatsoever. And they will fly over the fence. And with us having the garden that we have year-round, most, except for in the dead of winter, of course, but we do a lot of gardening. And also, contrary to popular belief, chickens and gardens do not mix any day of the week. Even on Martha Stewart's, I don't believe that. It just don't work. They will demolish a garden, absolutely demolish it. They will eat and peck and consume young, tender plants, and then when you get plants that get the vegetables or the fruit on there, they will demolish that. They completely, trust me, they completely destroy a garden. The idea of it, yes, they eat insects, they eat little bugs, so you would think that they would be great little garden helpers, but they're not. Just trust me on this one. Don't even try it. Just trust me. Where was I going with that? Oh, flying over the fences. You know, and like I said, on that video, I got the most negative bashing, like I was torturing my chickens by clipping their wings. Clipping their wings is absolutely painless, as long as you do it the right way. And it's no different than us clipping our toenails. Yes, you can clip your toenails to, into the quick, or you can get into the meat, or you can get into get them too short, and yes, they become painful, but as long as you know what you're doing and you are educated on it, I understand that clipping their wings prevents them from being able to escape predators, but again, mine are in a closed confinement where they are safe from predators majority of the time. Yes, I have an occasional mishap, but that's going to happen if you have chickens. It's going to happen if you have chickens, I promise. I don't care if you got a lock and key on them. It's going to happen. But you can't protect them 24/7. So I recommend that you know that up front. If you're extremely tender-hearted and, just know that chickens, having a flock of chickens, you're going to have predator problems at some point. But again, that's my choice, and I choose to clip them. I feel that it is absolutely painless to them, and yes, I understand that it prevents them from escaping from predators. If they were out free-ranging, I would absolutely not clip their wings. There would be no reason to clip their wings. However, I keep mine safe in this confinement, and I don't want them flying out where they are at risk for predators, and this is my process. It's what works for me. So just know that they can fly. They can get height enough to fly over a fence. Absolutely, they can. Even your heavier heritage breed birds that are heavier birds, they can fly over a fence. The longer you're around chickens, the more you'll learn. The more you'll adapt. You may start out with your flock and you have strong opinions that you think that's the right way, but the longer you keep them, that might absolutely shift and change. It's important not to be extremely judgmental in the beginning, because you will live and learn with chickens, absolutely. But I did want to mention a couple of things before we end this video. I have a guide that I made up for you guys. It's a backyard chicken keeper's guide to health. It covers a lot of different illnesses that you may run into with your flock, a lot of different diseases. I go through preventive measures. I go through things to actually treat and what treats what illnesses. So if you do have a backyard flock and you're a little inexperienced on illnesses and things you may run into, I'll link that in the description below. You can go check that out in our stand store. That one is absolutely free to download. And I actually give you a shopping list of different things that I use, like VetRx, some of the antibiotics that I've used for different illnesses, including respiratory illnesses that you will run into if you keep chickens long enough. That's another guarantee. But you guys check that out. It'll be in the description below. Also, if you are a beginner starting out, I have several beginner videos out there. You can just check out the Chicken Lady playlist on our channel. All of the chicken related videos are there, convenient for you in one playlist. There's, like I say, there's a lot of different beginner videos for you, those of you just getting started. I do have one video that's very in-depth for beginners. I think it's a little over an hour long, but I go into great detail, try to cover everything that came to mind in that video. Me thinking back when I first got started and all the things that I've learned over the years, I tried to pack that all into one video, and I tried to zone in on things for beginners. The name of that video is Backyard Chicken Basics, What Every Beginner Should Know. So again, if you're just starting out, I highly recommend that you check that video out. I will link it right here. And I appreciate you guys hanging out in the coop with me again. And as always, appreciate all the support. And we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks.